This month's theme is how do you bring the best out in people? And to me, this is about leadership. This is about self-leadership. It's about leadership to others. It's about leadership to the people that you serve and everything to make that happen. And so our job, and I've got a couple of frameworks because it's just not a training without a framework. So we've got some frameworks for you that I want to walk through, but I want to give you some perspective around how I see this topic of bringing the best out in people. I'll be honest with you. Early on, you'll hear some stories. I was horrible at this. I was really bad. But here's how I see that this comes about. Our role as a leader. Now, this could be a leader in the family. It could be a leader in a relationship. It could be a leader with your money. It could be a leader in a business. It could be a leader in a community. It could be a leader in a movement. It comes down to 5 things. And I'm going to walk through these rather quickly just because I want to just set the tone of where we're going with this. And so I'm going to jump to my iPad real quickly. And the first thing that I think we need to understand is our role as a leader is first to enroll them. See, and what ends up happening is if we don't do this right, we have people that are completely disengaged. They're not part of it. And so we want to enroll them. That means that we're going to end up enrolling with the right people. It's about having the right people in the right places, in the right spots, doing the things that we want to do. And when we enroll people in our journey, that's when we start to see movement. The second piece of this is to understand that once we enroll them, it's not enough to just get the right people, because I've done this in the number of businesses that I've ran, is that we need to get them engaged in the process. And so our role as a leader is to find a way to engage them in the process and in the purpose and in the direction that we want them to go, okay? This is truly about having consistent action, consistent results, and consistent movement and progress towards a goal, okay? The third level of this as a role as a leader is to empower them, okay? Empowering them to innovate, empowering them to be curious, empowering them to do more, empowering them to make some decisions, empowering them to sit back and say, hey, what better way can we do this? I was sitting on a board of directors meeting. I sit on a number of boards as an outside director. And yesterday we had a call with our directors, and it was an old-fashioned on-the-phone call. It wasn't a Zoom call and everything, but we started to ask the question, how can we make our meetings more engaging? How can we make our meetings more purposeful? Are there better ways to do things? And can we innovate? Can we do things differently? And I think that when you empower your people, your children, your teammates, your colleagues, all of them to do things differently, what ends up happening is they will innovate. They'll come to you with ideas, but in those ideas, we're also going to have to realize that there's something that is necessary if we're going to innovate. There's got to be some level of educate, because it's through the education that we find growth. Because if we simply make the decisions from the place of knowing what we know today, it won't get us to where we are tomorrow. Let's face it, in this AI world, things are changing, things are shifting. In our world, things have changed. If we choose not to shift with it, we're going to be left behind. I am in a profession, although I'm not in the profession as much anymore, as a CPA, as an accountant. Trust me, accountants don't like changing things. They want to just continue to do things the way they did them in the past. And the fact of the matter is they're going to get left behind because they're not willing to get educated. They're not willing to innovate, and they're not willing to grow. But it is there where we, one, find our ability to serve bigger and better, but it is also where we will find our fulfillment, because the human spirit, I think, is hungry for growth. Okay. If this is making sense, then let me know. Let me know in the chat. And that leads me to the last piece of the role of a leader. And that is, let me put this in here. The last piece of the role of a leader is to elevate. Is to truly elevate them and elevate your people so they are in higher roles. I have seen this, and I have been a culprit of this. I've been guilty of this in that as a leader, I thought I was there to manage. We'll talk more about that. But our job as leaders is to create more leaders. Our job as leaders is to create more. Our job is to give them the opportunity and the possibility and to be able to give them the vision of what is available to them as they grow. Because when we grow our people, even if they grow outside of us, even if they turn around and say, it's time for me to spread my wings and fly, that's your job as a leader. And so with that as the construct of how I want to see our role, then the question becomes, what do you do? How do we start to play into this? And what does that look like moving forward? So let me ask you this question. How many of you, and you can type in the chat box, how many of you recognize this statue? Do you know what it is? Let me know. Yeah, it's the David. All right. It's the PG version of the David. Okay. I kept the waist from waist up. All right. But it's the PG version of the David. Arguably, it is one of the most recognizable statues in the world. Okay. In the world. But did you know that Michelangelo was not the original sculptor of this statue? The fact is this. The original sculptor of this statue was a guy by the name of Antonio Rossellino. And Antonio Rossellino was commissioned to carve the David. And he immediately stepped down and said, I can't do this, and I will not do this. Because the marble that he was given was low quality. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to chance it because the marble, the guts of what he had to start with weren't good enough. And so the marble, the block of marble that ultimately became the David, sat in the elements for a quarter century. It sat there until Michelangelo came around and said, I got this. I'll go do this. And he went and carved what is arguably the most recognizable statue in the world. And so I want you to take that in, because as someone that's trying to bring out the best in people, we need to understand that it doesn't matter where we start. That's not the question. It matters what we do with what we have.
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.